go ahead and talk to Adam calling in from Illinois. Adam also wants to ask me questions about atheism. So yeah, let's hear it, Adam.
Hey, Dan, it's me again from last week.
Yes. Welcome back. And happy to hear from you. What's going on?
First of all, I just want to thank you for just letting people talk. You're just so awesome.
Well, I appreciate that. Hey, I want people to give their reasons for their belief. This is of us examining that. And unfortunately, I have to control the show somehow, so it's not total chaos. But I try to be as reasonable as I can with this stuff. So thank you for that.
Okay, now, do you want me to just get right into it, or just you said some things. I've been listening to the show this whole time. There's a lot of things I wanted to comment on, but just to get to my what I told the screener was your street epistemology.
Street epistemology, yes, it's a big word, but it's the study of knowledge.
Oh, okay. Street epistemology, and basically you're just trying to plant the seeds of doubt in people against God.
Oh, no. So the history of street epistemology is a frayed one. Originally, it started with a book. I think it was 2014 by a guy named Peter Boghossian, and the book's title was A Manual for Creating Atheists. And so Peter Boghossian did what the story goes was that it was his publisher that chose that name for him. It wasn't his personal idea, but he had created this with the intention that atheists could use this method to deconvert people, essentially, or at least question them about their beliefs to change their minds. But the street epistemology community, that's not really their goals, right? So street epistemologists in general, and again, I'm just speaking broadly for the group, is to ask people about what they believe and why, and to see, if by asking these questions, if there's any changes that one could reasonably make about their own beliefs. And yes, predominantly the street epistemology community is full of atheists, but you will also find that street epistemologists have lots of conversations with atheists about why they're atheists as well, and go beyond just the God questions. I mean, they talk about all kinds of things, like whether or not a bluebird somebody saw was actually their grandmother reincarnated. That's one that I always think of. So do street epistemologists talk about God with people a lot? Yeah, absolutely. Is their intention to sow doubt? Not necessarily. Their intention, in my view, is to see whether or not the reasons why somebody might believe in something are good ones. And that good is going to be subjective to the asker and also to the person being asked. So the person being asked might still think at the end of their conversation, I think my reasons are good. Or by having this conversation, they might realize, hey, maybe I need to reevaluate my beliefs. So there you go. That's a complex explanation of street epistemology.
Well, I like it. That's good. That sounds good to me. So technically, if you're causing people to doubt God, this would actually be a really bad thing in the Bible.
We're getting some static on your end here, Adam. I'm going to put you in the queue really quickly and see if the crew can do anything about that, because we can't hear you. I can't hear what you're saying. But anyway, Ross, do you know about street epistemology? Are you a fan?
Yeah, I read a manual for creating atheists, and we were just talking before the show. Reed Nice Wonder is a good friend of mine as well, and I like the aim of street epistemology, and many people have kind of compared the format of our show a little to that. That's not quite what we're about, because we're all about the firsthand experiences of visiting these various groups, and we don't go in there. We certainly do ask questions to get answers and see the form of those answers, but we're not doing that same kind of Socratic method of trying to kind of walk people through the underpinnings of their faith such that we would get them to ask more profound questions that would cause them to, maybe doubt them, as our caller Adam was suggesting.
Yes. Yeah. And I talked about this last week as well, but for those who, maybe missed that, but, I talked with Reed Nice Wonder, who is a president of Street Epistemology International. I'm very much inspired by the Street Epistemology community. I don't think what I do on this show is pure Street Epistemology either, for a number of reasons. One being this is a call-in show, and I have another guest that's on the line, and we're talking. I'm able to mute the conversation, and I can, it really is an illusion about who we get to talk to, right? I mean, we have call screeners. We get to see who gets to come on. Obviously, I try to get as many people on as I can, but the dynamic is a bit different. I think a pure Street Epistemology conversation is a one-on-one conversation with somebody, and if you stick purely to that method, you will get results in a different way than you might on a show like this, where I might ask a Street Epistemology type question or two, but we also talk about other things, and then my guest might interject, and then we go on rabbit trails, and it's suddenly not sticking pure to the method. But I do believe in the method. I do think it is a good tool in the toolbox to use when having conversations. I certainly don't think it's the only way.
Conceptually, it should be available to everybody. So a Christian could also engage in Street Epistemology. Yes. And I think Adam was kind of jumping to the conclusion, and I think that's where he was going with his next question, that that this is a tool necessarily aimed at disabusing people of belief in God. Doesn't have to be. It's getting them to examine their beliefs and how certain of those beliefs they are. It's a useful exercise for anybody.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that book has the title that it does. It's unfortunate. I think it's unfortunate that the atheist community is the first ones to really pick up on this, because I think that does kind of make things harder to try to teach the method out there. I mean, really, what it is just a modified Socratic method. I think a key difference between Socratic method and Street Epistemology is that Socratic method might ask rhetorical questions for the sake of asking, for making an argument, whereas you're not trying to make an argument with Street Epistemology. You're really not. You're really trying to evaluate somebody's confidence level about their belief and see if that changes based on asking questions about that belief. So it is a bit different. So I have Adam back on here. Let's see if we can get you on the show here. Adam, you are back on Truth Wanted. Let's see if the crew could do their magic. What's up, Adam?
Did they do their magic? Can you hear me?
Sounds good to me.
Magical.
To
me. Oh, goodness. Thanks, magic.
All right. So we talked a little bit. I don't know if you could hear some of it, what we were saying there while you were going in between calls. But we did talk about this idea of Street Epistemology and what it means as an atheist, being in the community and stuff, and also just how we both think, at least Ross and I are both agree on the conclusion that anybody can really use this method if you stick to it and don't choose to, assuming if you're just asking questions about someone's belief, you don't have to be an atheist to do that. You really don't. And I would encourage anybody of any particular persuasion of faith to ask those kinds of questions. And I just think that's a good thing to do.
A lot of this also gets tied into Bayesian reasoning, which is just a fancy way of trying to put numbers to your beliefs and your level of certainty. And, usually you can enter a conversation with a certain level of certainty about any given belief or claim or thought, anything you can describe as a sentence. You could say, I'm about 75% sure. I'm not sure how sure I am, but that sounds about right. And then someone can give you reasons or ask you probing questions, and that can make you a little more certain, a little less certain, depending on what the claim is. And so really it's an approach, it's a tool, and it doesn't have to be necessarily even about this topic.
Yep. So
you're just asking questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but not in the nefarious, I'm just asking questions kind of way. More just here's a good methodology we can follow when examining our beliefs.
Okay. Well, to stay with what I told the screener, how did you know you were a Christian?
How did I know I was a Christian? That's a great question. So I grew up
how did you become a Christian?
Yeah, great question. So for me, I grew up in two different kinds of churches. I spent the first 12 years of my life in the Methodist church. I ended up hanging out at a Baptist church later, mostly for family reasons. It wasn't because a switch in theology or anything. We just knew a bunch of people at this other church, and we started hanging out over there. So I was this kind of kid who grew up Methodist and also Baptist, kind of weird hybrid. So there's a couple of different ways that a Christian could answer this. I would say that I knew I was a Christian because I was baptized. I was actually baptized twice in the Methodist church and the Baptist church. So I got my double duty there. And also in the Methodist church, you're asked to take confirmation classes. So I did that when I was 12 as well, where they kind of educate you on this decision of, getting, becoming a Christian and stuff like that. I was in the youth group. I was part of a college ministry. I was a student leader. I was also a camp counselor and a program head at a Christian camp. So I was preaching when I worked at that camp. And I also baptized when I was at that camp. So I was living the life. I as much as I would reasonably call myself a Christian, and I think most other Christians would call me a Christian. There may be some particular Christians who have particular definitions that would maybe my experience wouldn't line up to. But by a mainstream definition, yeah, I was definitely a Christian.
Interesting. I'm one of those weird Christians that thinks you have to have a personal relationship with God in order to be a Christian.
Well, I believed I had a personal relationship at the time. Yeah, for sure. Like I definitely talked about that.
Do you have a wife?
Do I have a wife? No, I am not. Where is this going?
Do you have any? Well, I'm gonna show you. Do you have any significant other in your life?
I mean, I have close friends and family. But I'm single, if that's what you're wondering, Adam. But I don't swing that way.
Okay. How about your mom? Do you love your mom? And do you know your mom?
It's Adam and Eve, not Adam and Dan.
Yeah. Do I love my mother? Yes, I love my mother, and I know my mother.
Okay, so you would technically, literally, have a personal relationship with your mother.
Yes, I think by most reasonable definitions, yes, I have a personal relationship with my mother.
Okay, so did you have a personal relationship with God?
Interesting. Now, what I would say now as an atheist, I would say differently from when I was a Christian, right? I believe my experience was psychological in nature. I don't think when I prayed to God, I was actually talking to a God. I don't think when I had experiences that I described as being inspired by the Holy Spirit were actually that of a spirit. I think they were the result of cultural influences, psychological influences, and just other kinds of various natural phenomenon. I don't think my experiences there were supernatural or divine in any sense.
But I think at the time, Dan and I, when I was a Christian, would say that, yes, we did have a very personal relationship with God. And, for me, kind of the dividing line of belief is prayer. Like if someone is looking for counsel or guidance in their life, that they, as a response, go in prayer to someone that they feel is listening to them for actionable intelligence, or at least to help cope and unload. So I very much had that relationship, and I'm guessing Dan did as well.
Mm-hmm.
But Dan's looking back now and characterizing how he sees that relationship in the light of today. Yeah. I do very much the same thing, which we have to remain logically consistent.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to say something, but it's going to sound arbitrary. But if you actually had a personal relationship with God and then you left God, you wouldn't say God doesn't exist. You would say like you just divorced him or something like that. Whereas if you suddenly didn't.
Well, yes, semantically, I agree with you. But here's the thing. Like I used that language that made sense to me at the time because I thought that this was real. But I don't think that this is real now. So I don't use that same language. So,
I don't think you were ever a Christian to begin with. You might have been raised in a Christian family. You might have gone to church. You might have been baptized. But none of that is going to make you born again. None of that is going to make you love God with all of your heart. That's just,
I think
upbringing, but that's not.
Adam, I think that's your opinion. I think other Christians would disagree. I think some Christians would say that me being baptized and having a relationship with my church and being a part of the Christian body politic rather is enough to quantify and qualify me as a Christian. And yes, again, I want to emphasize, I totally did believe that I had a personal relationship, but you have to think about it from my perspective, Adam. If my position is that Christianity as a whole isn't true, right? Then how am I supposed to look at my experiences? How am I supposed to say well, yeah, what was it about that, that personal relationship thing? How do I justify that? And the most reasonable explanation is that it was, again, psychological in nature. It was a natural phenomenon. It wasn't necessarily divine. And here's the thing, Adam, you also have to acknowledge that this has to be true for some religions. Even if you're a Christian, you have to acknowledge that, because other people claim that they have personal relationships with divine entities as well. And if Christianity is strictly true, then those can't be real. So we have to know that at least some of those experiences aren't real. And I go farther and say my experiences as a Christian weren't valid. So,
and what what Dan and I, Adam, are acknowledging is that these relationships, these understandings of being in conversation with a supernatural personage that is God or the object of another belief, that those feelings are real. And I think what you're trying to say, Adam, is that in some way, Dan or myself, people who were formerly Christians, were not actually Christians. They were just pretending, or they were misguided. And any true Christian could never walk away from God. And what we're saying is that our experience was indistinguishable, both internally and externally. If you looked at our lives before, when we were Christians, from any other Christian you could point to today, including yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I disagree, but I don't think you could point to anyone's life and think that you're a Christian, because I asked you, how do you become a Christian? Going to church doesn't make you a Christian. Being baptized doesn't make you a Christian.
Going to Christian doesn't make you a Christian. Going to church doesn't make you a Christian any more than going to McDonald's makes you a hamburger. Yeah, I remember hearing Keith Green say that, on the records I would listen to, and yeah, we always had different variations of that we said in church. Yeah, we get that. We know.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. And the Bible even says that not everyone that says Jesus, Lord, Lord, is going to enter into the kingdom of heaven.
Yep, I said that to people too that I was trying to convince to be a Christian. Yep, we get all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think you. I wouldn't have ever considered you a Christian to begin with. But that doesn't matter. What matters now is, I don't know that you become a Christian.
Well, Adam, have you considered that maybe the definition of Christian is a subjective one, and that the entire history of Christianity, there may have never been one single unifying definition as to what a Christian is?
Well, I have a definition, but
I know you do. I know you do. But how do you know that that's the right one?
Well, a Christian is someone that loves Jesus Christ with all their heart, with all their mind, with all their soul, with all their strength, and keeps his commandments.
Okay.
But you can't tell if someone actually does that.
Right.
You can't say you love God.
Yeah, Adam, what you're trying to do is you're trying to quantify and sort of put strictures on people's internal belief states, which is impossible to know. So really all we can go upon is external signs of their faith, the fruits of the Spirit, however you want to point to external signs, and also their professed beliefs. And having lived as a Christian and interacted with Christians and still interacting with many professing Christians today, I think I can say that all signs point to me having been a Christian in the way you're thinking, except you're working really hard to define a Christian in such a way that they could never not be a Christian.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And this undying faith idea of Christianity isn't even true to the closest people of Jesus. Like Peter doubted Jesus even when Jesus was alive, and like the history of the church is full of people who have had doubts and have had different understandings of what it means. And I wouldn't doubt the validity of I would never say to you, Adam, I don't think you're a real Christian, because you have a very different take of what Christianity means to me. But that doesn't really matter, right? What matters is, are the beliefs that we're talking about true in the first place? We can spend all day talking about, oh, well, I did this and you didn't do this. But at the end of the day, if the belief claims are true, then that's what I want to know. That's what's going to convince me. Maybe I didn't grow up the same way you did, and maybe my interpretation of Christianity is different. So what? Like, I'm sure if you talk to Christians 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, there's going to be some different ideas there too. I don't think there's one single eternal unifying definition. And if there is, I'm not aware of it, and I don't know how you could demonstrate that.
You are right on several things in Christianity. When the one guy said that the doubting Thomas, Jesus says, "Blessed are your eyes, because you have blessed are they that have believed but have not have seen."
Right.
And you said earlier in the show that they said that wasn't meant to be taken like literally or something.
I didn't talk about the doubting Thomas story at all today. I'm not sure what you're talking about.
One important element of the story of Thomas is that Jesus did let him put his fingers in his side.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and then he said, blessed are the ones who have believed and have not seen. And that's
yes.
So the other thing was, so Peter, I don't believe he was a Christian yet, because Jesus said, when thou art converted, strengthen thy brethren. And then Peter said, I will go with you to prison or to death. And then Jesus says, you're going to deny me 3 times.
Hey, if Peter was the rock upon which Jesus built his church, I think he gets to be considered a Christian.
No, Peter's not the rock. Peter is a rock, but he's not the rock. Jesus is the rock. That's a Roman Catholic teaching that Peter is.
I think Ross's point still stands, though. I think Ross's point still stands, and that Peter is definitely a Christian.
Well, he wasn't a believer at that point, though. Like,
I mean, he followed the man around the desert for like a long time. Like, I don't know. Like, if anybody was a follower, if anybody was a believer, I mean, he saw what Jesus did. He believed. This is a problem, Adam, with Christianity.
Adam, it sounds like you're very willing to cast other Christians aside in a second, the moment they have a doubt. I think you might need to be a little more accepting of your fellow Christians.
I would argue that, let's say that you're right in that in order to be a Christian, you have to have undying faith and attention and love for this person. And if that wavers in any way, that doesn't make you a Christian, then I don't even want to be a Christian then. I don't think that's a good way of living life. Honestly, I'm not committed to this atheism thing, FYI. I'm really not. I'm really open to any other kinds of beliefs, because I'm to be open is to change and to grow and to know and to understand and to like find better knowledge and a better place in the world. And if like Christianity, that definition of it, that understanding of it is preventing all of that from happening. So if everybody in the world thought that way, we would not have the progressive movements that we have now. We would not have the acceptance of the LGBT community as fellow human beings and not something to be have derision for. We would not have the advances of scientific understanding that we do, because we may be afraid of figuring out that things like evolution might contradict our ideas of what we consider to be true, that being maybe a young earth creationist position. Like, again, let's say that you're right, Adam. Let's say that this is the real Christianity. I don't want anything to do with it. And I'm not convinced that it is. And I'm not convinced that Christianity is true anyway. So I don't know. I don't know if this goes anywhere.
I'm not a big fan of laying out, like you're committing this logical fallacy or, this logical fallacy. But you might, Adam, want to look up the no true Scotsman fallacy. And it's an approach of kind of labeling or defining a topic in such a way that you always get your expected outcome. And I think perhaps you're trying to define Christianity in a way that's going to serve your purposes, but doesn't really apply in any meaningful way to the actual Christian experience.
Yep.
I know the no true Scotsman fallacy, and okay. I said there's no real way to tell if someone is a true believer other than what they say and do.
So why are you saying I'm not a true Christian then? If there's no way to tell, why are you saying I was never a Christian?
Well, you said being baptized was what made you a Christian and going to church, and you thought that's what made you a Christian.
Well, it sounds like you have ways of telling then.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you are lying, stealing, killing, and pillaging, and you say, "Oh,
so
yes,
there are ways."
Jesus.
So there are ways then.
Well, yes, there's ways, but there's not 100% guaranteed certain way because you can't judge people's heart. Someone can tell you that they love you, and like you can, like if you have a wife, you can tell your wife, "I love you," but then if you go and cheat on her, then
so there are ways then.
Yeah. Well, Dan is telling you where his heart was.
Yeah.
And you're not believing him. And he wasn't pillaging, I'm pretty sure. He wasn't lying more than the ordinary. Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds like a Christian to me.
Well, okay. Well, I'm saying you can't be for certain. You can't actually judge someone's true intentions. Someone could donate to charity and you think, "Oh, he's a good guy," but then it turns out he was just doing it just to look like a good guy, and then he's doing something nefarious.
Sure.
I'm with you there. Tell, only God. Okay, yeah. Only God truly knows if you're with him or not. But almost you mentioned something.
But you said you know though. You said that you knew. Like you said you were certain that I was not a Christian. So how did you know? What method did you use?
So I'm gonna. It's the.
I think maybe you suspect, Adam, that God knows, but that God tends to agree with you.
Wait, what? Can you say that again?
I'm getting the sense that you're saying only God knows who is a Christian, but I think you have very strong opinions on who is a Christian, and that you just kind of feel that God tends to agree with you on these matters.
Well, no, if you can know whether or not you have a relationship with someone, like you have a relationship with your mother.
Yeah, I know I had a relationship with God. I told you that.
Yeah.
I did too.
Yeah. That's how we contextualize.
But again, we could be lying. We could be lying. Like
I could be.
You could be lying.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, what's the point?
I know. Well, that's the point is you can't know for certain, but there are signs that would indicate it. Like, if I told you there's a box and if you stick your hand in the box, it's going to kill you, and you see 50 other people sticking their hand in the box and they don't die, that doesn't mean that it won't kill you, but there's reason to believe it won't kill you.
So what reasons do you have to believe, Adam? We got a couple minutes here. We got to wrap it up. What reasons do you believe that you have, that because you apparently know my entire life, which is interesting. I'm really glad that you know more about my own story than I do. But you say that I was never a Christian. So why? Why is that? What reasons did you use to conclude?
I'll tell you, and then I'll let you go because I know you have other things to do. And thank you for letting me talk anyway. If you read Jesus's parable of the sower, you fit in with the seed that was cast among the thorns.
Okay, so your interpretation of this parable is led you to conclude that I was never a Christian.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Adam. That's all the time that we got for now. Appreciate you calling in, and you have a good rest of your night. So I wasn't a Christian because Jesus talks about the parable of the sowers and stuff. And
you fell on the stony ground.
I fell on the stony ground. That's right. So it's almost as if if you create a system by which anybody who doesn't believe what you have to say is automatically wrong by definition, then you can just say that you're right because you believe it. And if you don't believe it, then you're wrong. Right? That's falsifiability right there.
Yeah, we were talking about arbitrary. That sounds pretty arbitrary.
Yeah, yeah. And this is a problem that's obviously not unique to Christianity, but unfortunately, Adam is not the first person I've ever talked to who has questioned the very nature of my Christianity. And Ross, I'm sure you've had several conversations with people who do this.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, no offense to Adam, I think it's a rude tactic because essentially you're just not taking someone at their word and you're trying to tell them about your personal story, but their personal story is not comfortable or convenient for you. And so they're just discounting your entire life and experience in that relationship and understanding that you had and devoted years to. I don't like that.
Yeah, I don't like it either. And I would never tell you, Adam, I would never tell a Christian I've ever met in my entire life that they aren't real Christians. Okay, I can say that maybe what they follow isn't consistent with other beliefs of Christianity, but your identity is your own and you have a right to that. And I also have a right to my own identity. And I can be honest with myself and my own story and know my life experiences and trust myself in that. And I also have more evidence than honestly a lot of the atheists that do stuff on the internet, because I have a video of me as a Christian explaining my beliefs in full. And so, and that was on my way to a meeting, like as part of my student ministry. Okay. What more do you want from me, Adam? The fact that I don't follow Christianity anymore doesn't mean that my beliefs weren't sincere at the time. And quite frankly, that's a cult tactic right there.
And if you're going to say that only God knows someone's heart, you have to leave it there. That's the last authoritative word you can say on the topic.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have a suspicion that you want to put me in this box because my story and others like it cause discomfort in your ideas of this belief, and that there has to be some reason other than this belief isn't true that we don't believe anymore. It can't be that this belief isn't true. Well, because this belief has to be true. So what explains the rest of us then? Where did we come from? How did we get to where we are? And this is where stereotypes about non-Christians come from, that we've had emotional trauma in our lives, that the church somehow hurt us in some sort of way, and it's awful and it's disgusting. And myself and other former Christians have to deal with it all the time. So like Ross said, it's rude and I don't appreciate it, but do what you got to do, I guess.